your camera on, that if you have your camera on, that you will be included in that recording. So we also ask, of course, that your microphone remains off the entire program. And we want to encourage everyone to join us after the show for our special Q&A today. Amy and I are thrilled to be able to create a safe space for everyone to really bring their hearts to the program, and for us to give you the support and our perspectives and share some tips and tools. And so we'll be putting that link in the chat all during the show, and please do sign up. Literally, you are signing up for the cost of buying us a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd like to officially welcome everyone to Love Lost, Self Found. Pretty powerful, right?
Yes.
Reclaim your strength with self-love, be empowered as your authentic self, and learn to live with trust and love again. So, Amy, welcome, and let's get this party started.
Yes. So let's do a quick introduction of each other, so in case you don't know who we are. I'm Amy Shade. I am a women's life coach. I am the creator of the Radical Embodiment Method. I'm really passionate about women and their transformation, and particularly this subject because oftentimes we lose ourselves in love, and we have a hard time digging ourselves out of this trench that we put ourselves in. And that, so I'm really passionate about supporting women through this process, or through the process of anything in their life that they're struggling with. But I think this in particular is something that's very, it's just so difficult for women, I think. So I think this is an important conversation that we're going to have today. And I'm excited to hear your questions, or to also get Marcy's insight, because we are we are different in how we approach our healing and our coaching and our goals in life sometimes, but all with the ultimate goal of having a beautiful vision in front of us. So Marcy, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure.
And then we will
Thank you.
Jump in.
So I'm Marcy Newman. I'm known as the Heart Shift Coach, and heart shifting is a process that is really the culmination of 50 years of service being in this field of helping people to heal their hearts. And heart shifting is a process that I created whereby we are taking the dense energy of the mind and we are bringing it through the heart, where it is recalibrated with love and transformed, transmuted back into light, which of course is the energy that we want to be creating from. So all of my work is really focused on incorporating that process, and the basis of it is self-love. So simultaneously, I am always teaching my clients the heart shift process through the journey of self-love. It's very, very powerful, as you can imagine. And like I said, I've been privileged to be in this field for over 50 years. And it's so shocking to me every time I say that, and yet it is true. So Amy and I are here with you today. Again, as Amy said, this is such an important topic. And I'm thrilled to have at least one man in our audience. You're so important to us. So welcome. We can't wait to hear your perspectives after the show. I know, Dennis, that you have signed up for our live Q&A, and we look forward to hearing from you there. But how important it is that we start to recognize who we are in relationships, and what are the parts that we actually surrender to our partners? What is the cost of that surrender? And what do we gain? What's the reward of it all? So we're going to be jumping into that. And as I said, everyone, please do join us afterwards. We're going to have what I'm sure will be a very, very lively conversation. But with that, I think, Amy, I'd like to start by just diving into some of what you've experienced and what you're willing to share. So having said that, we're all coming here today with stories of love lost. There's not anyone on the earth who has not experienced this. So Amy, please share yours.
Thank you. And again, welcome everybody to Live with Marcy and Amy. This is our monthly live online show. If you don't know, every third Thursday of the month. I just want to put that in there because we do show up every month to share our thoughts and to invite guests and to really help support you and your transformation forward. So yeah, I'm sorry. We both have this today again. So yeah, love loss. So in my own life, you know, and I reflect back on this, and I was sitting with having lunch with someone yesterday who was talking about getting older, and she's 70 or 8, you know, in her 70s, and how people around her are dying, and how that process at her age is so prevalent in her community with that age. And I looked at her and I said, well, I don't think age has anything to do with it. I have lost so many people in my life. I've lost 2 of my best friends, and my fiance has passed, right? And so that was an interesting story because we can tell ourselves any story we want to about what's happening to us at this time. And so when I think about love loss, it is in the manner of the person I love the most passing away within 6 weeks of a diagnosis. It is my best friend of 30 years passing away. It is lost my best friend passing away, and it is also about relationships breaking up. Right. So in 2023 was a tough year for me, and I ended a relationship with someone that I loved. And when I look through my process of love lost, I look back at it as an opportunity for me to find myself, right? And that biggest opportunity came from when my fiance passed away, because I had to reinvent myself. I went back to school. I got my coaching certification. I started my business. I started to really get into myself like I've never got into myself after my fiance passed away. And that is an important lesson for me to hold on to. And that is something that once I went through that arc of reinventing myself and being more confident and deciding things for myself, there's something that happens that we're going to get a little bit more deep into this, but you gain trust in self. You gain confidence in self. You gain an understanding that, yes, things happen, but you're going to be okay. Like through this breakup I had in 2023, I always had a sense that I was going to be okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. And so, you know, it would be oftentimes we become victim to this loss. And I think that we're going to discuss that today about how to switch that mindset into something where you actually grow, you come home to self, you learn more about yourself than you ever have learned before, and you actually love yourself. Like you're confident enough that you love yourself, and you know that you don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I need to be on my side, my own side. And this is what's important. And we have not learned how to be on our own side. We've learned to give our energy out to other people. So I do believe that loss is a part of life, but it's not the only part. And loss is a part of our life that is there to teach us something. And so today, when we dive deeper into the questions and more details, I think hearing our story and hearing how, coming from a great loss to where I am today, it's possible for everybody. And I think that's one of why we do this, Marcy and I, is to show that you can transform your life. You can transform yourself. You can be on your own side. You can get into self-love and confidence. And I think that's all I want to share right now on that. Marcy?
Sure.
Are you there? Okay.
I am here. Yeah. Want me to just jump in?
Yeah. Do you want to share your story, or do you want to go into questions and share your story a little bit later?
Well, actually, I want to share a bit of my story because there was something coming to my mind and in the forefront of my heart as I was listening to you. And that is, number one, thank you so much for bringing up the fact that age has absolutely nothing to do with love lost. And in fact, we actually experience the loss of what we interpret as loss of love our whole lives through. It begins the very first time, for instance, that, rather than taking you out of your crib, your mother answers the telephone, right? And as those things start to happen more and more, we are interpreting them as love lost. And we, of course, have more monumental experiences as life goes on where we lose love or we interpret it as being lost. But I also think that every time that we're in these experiences, and by the way, full transparency here, because so much of what I'm sharing is coming to you from 2020 hindsight. Okay. When I was in the midst of all this, I didn't have the same clarity. But what came to my mind was before I became divorced from my husband or even, contemplated that, I actually was aware of the love as I wanted and needed it to be dwindling. And in fact, a good year before I told my husband that I wanted a divorce, and by the way, we were together for almost 30 years. So before I even would contemplate that, because I was already sensing this loss of love in what I had experienced and again, what I wanted and needed, I started to realize that this loss of love was also a journey in another direction. And that journey was the journey of self-love. Did I put those words to it? Sometimes. Sometimes I had that clarity and I thought, oh my God, you're being called to, really step up to the plate here in a completely different way. But the other part of that is that there were often times where I was at war within myself over letting go of that love, because that love held with it so many promises that I had made. Promises that I had made to my husband, to my children, to my family, my extended family, my community, all the people, that I worked with. In other words, some of these were almost unspoken agreements, but others were very well known. There were huge expectations on me to maintain that love in order to keep everyone else's life in peace and for them to be able to function in a way where they could be comfortable, number one, and also assured that they wouldn't be led into any conflict. And this I was very aware of. And I want you to know, for that year where this awareness started to come to me, it was that knowingness that actually kept me holding on much longer than what was healthy for me. But when I actually think back now with that 2020 vision about how love was being lost, what I realized also was that what I was actually experiencing, and by the way, people, we will probably get very emotional with this, but what I was experiencing was that there was no longer a place for my love to land. And so this journey of self-love that I can share with you now, I believe is a journey of us learning how to truly give and receive love. And so when that relationship is suddenly over, that's what's impacted. And it's why so many of us immediately put up those walls, right? Because no longer is there a place for our love to land. And we're afraid to receive that love out of fear that we'll then have to give it. And there's no place for us to do so. So I wanted to share that because it really just, I could feel it rising to the surface, to the forefront of my heart as you were speaking, Aim.
Interesting. And I would say 1 year, that's pretty good. That's short.
That let me back up for a second. That was actively engaged in the war. It was like the final culmination of the war. But the truth of the matter was, right around my 19th, 20th year in my marriage, and again, a lot of this is 2020 hindsight, I was in the knowingness already that something had shifted, that where the marriage was no longer being fulfilled. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, that's
so yes, it does take a while.
Just to it does take a while to process. But as we get more towards self-love, then in our self-love and who we are, it's actually less processing time.
And that is absolutely true.
Yeah. The process becomes lighter.
It does, and it becomes quicker. So Amy, something I wanted to ask you about is, how do beliefs shape, or how did your beliefs shape your understanding of love and relationships? And how did it prevent you from embodying self-love?
Yeah, so our beliefs are very they rule our lives. They really are the driving, they drive our life until we understand that we are being driven by something that is not real. Right? So when we are born onto this earth, certain beliefs are instilled in us. And we, as people, reject them or we accept them. But that we are all, we all have contact with them. We all know what they are. And so like Marcy, the way maybe she believed about her life and the track it was going to go on was based in marriage and family and having kids. I didn't have that type of belief. I didn't believe that I wanted children and to do that route because I'm an artist. I'm a dancer, and I was like, I was a free spirit, and my beliefs in that in my life also ruled me in ways I had to let go later on. Okay. So I do believe that until we understand our beliefs about things and who we are, we will be stuck in them. And what happens in relationships, unfortunately, oftentimes, is that we are with partners who don't believe that we are that great of a person, or that we have faults, or that we have nitpickings, and we do the same to them also. But I think our beliefs, once you know your worth and once you know who you are, and what beliefs you want to adhere to and what beliefs you want to let go of, that you are, when someone is saying something to you that you don't believe is true, it doesn't affect you as much. And so understanding our beliefs about relationships is super important. And I would say it would be the first step in getting out of a bad relationship or getting into a good relationship and getting in a relationship with self. It's important to know what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about relationships, what we believe about men, what we believe about women, and how if once we know that, are we okay with those beliefs? And unfortunately, in love, we have beliefs about men that are, if we're talking about a traditional relationships here, that are not healthy to have about men as women. And this is our fault. This is something we need to take responsibility for. And we have beliefs about ourselves that are unhealthy. And we have beliefs about life that keep us in a cage. And so it's important to know what those beliefs are. And I was having a conversation years ago with one of my friends who was in an unhappy relationship. And I said, what is going on? What's the fear about? She says, the fear is that I'm afraid of dying alone. I'm afraid of dying alone. And I'm like, okay, but is that real? Is that belief enough to keep you in this unhappy relationship? Meaning, well, first and foremost, usually men die before women anyways. I didn't say that to her, but usually that's what happens. And secondly, we all die alone. It's our own process. It's our own sacred process of dying. We all die alone. So what kind of beliefs are you believing about your life, about your relationships, about men, about your future, and about you yourself? Like, what do you believe about you? Do you trust yourself in relationships? Do you believe you're capable of being on your own 2 feet? Are you capable of financially supporting yourself? Do you have fears around that? Do you have fears around finding someone else after a breakup? Like, what are your beliefs? And I think this is such a powerful it's like a silent kind of put on some music, get to know yourself, and just let your thoughts flow about what you really truly believe about things. Marcy, that's my
Yeah, I know, I heard.
Well, I'm going to mute myself for a second.
So I like what you're saying, Amy, about all of that and about how important it is that we really solidify our beliefs, but that we also challenge them. As I said, I stayed in that marriage, and on reflection, for actually 6-7 years, even because my beliefs were so cemented that I was obligated to do so, that I had taken these vows, that I was obligated to make everybody else's life comfortable and to keep them happy. And I want to share with our audience how my health deteriorated during that time. I would be in a situation, for instance, where I would be out to dinner and I would go to stand up, and my hips, I would feel like my legs were just going to collapse beneath me. I had digestive issues that never left me. I constantly was taking Tums, papaya, anything I could pop into my mouth because I was in constant pain. I had constant headaches. I never started my day without Advil. Now you're talking about somebody who's been a healer for 50 years. For me to be reliant on these things tells you that I had reached this threshold where I felt I had no control over it. What also started to happen, and this is so interesting, is that I started to have recurrent nightmares. And they always had the same theme. I couldn't find my wedding ring. But what would happen is I would wake up alarmed in the middle of the night, and I would be literally like tossing everything out of my nightstand, looking for my ring and in this panic. Of course, when I finally did reach out for help, that last year, when I was trying to make peace with the war that was going on within me, she very quickly pointed out to me that that's not a recurrent nightmare. It's called a panic attack. And you are wound so tightly that you won't even allow them to come out during the day. They had to come out during the night when I was asleep. Can you imagine being in that state, that mental state of stress and anxiety, that I couldn't even let myself have a panic attack during the day? I couldn't afford it. And so here I was, literally, my physical body deteriorating because my emotional state and psychological state was so far removed from the perfection of my spiritual state. My spirit, of course, only wanted me to go forward, to be happy, to find and create happiness in my life. And I remember being so aware of those voices. I mean, I'm, an intuitive, and I could feel it on my own. I also knew that what I was experiencing physically, mentally, emotionally, was because I was out of alignment with my spirit. I knew it. And yet I thought, well, this isn't in my control. I can't control this. I have to do this. And I remember, lying in bed at night with such pain sometimes in my hips, I couldn't even turn over. And what was interesting is I would hear my father's voice say to me, well, you made your bed, now lie in it. And that was his attitude. And so I had taken that on. And I can't tell you how grateful I am, first off, that I finally reached for help. And I got the support of this wonderful therapist slash mentor who guided me through the process of unraveling those beliefs and finding my worth. And so one of the things that you had said earlier, Amy, was, about how challenging it was this past year, leaving that love. You still love him. I still loved my husband. That was the crazy thing. I still loved him. And yet I knew in order to survive, I had to leave my marriage. I had to leave the whole world that we had created together, because in it was no room for me to be me. And so I think that's a lot of why people also stay in relationships, even though they have a higher knowing that something's wrong here. This is not, fulfilling my heart. And there's no place for me to be. I mean, that's what I experienced in my own life. There was no place for me to be.
Mhm.
And so, how important it is that we go into this with eyes wide open, and furthermore, hearts wide open, because it's in our hearts where all of this information that we need in order to be able to find peace and go forward is waiting for us.
So I have a question for you,
Yeah.
which is, why does losing love leave such a deep imprint on us? And do we ever really lose love?
So I believe that we never lose love. I believe, in fact, that these experiences that have even left us kicked out at the curb are actually experiences of love. And I know it sounds bizarre, but there is this wonderful book by Neil Donald Walsh, and the book is called The Little Soul and the Sun. And the little soul in the sun talks about these agreements that we make before we incarnate. And these contracts that we have are with those who actually love us the most. And they are willing to, I'll do this for you, and you'll do this for me. And there is a partnership, which is always the invitation to come back to true love. What is true love? True love is the love of self, because that is the divine essence of who we are. And so these relationships, and some of them I know, are really, really tough. Some include violence, abuse, all sorts of things. But the invitation that is within each and every one of them is to love yourself enough to want more of the truth of love. And so I don't believe that love is ever lost. I think that we are so confused about love, and it's often camouflaged in the pain that we experience, because we have this belief somewhere that if that relationship is over, it's because we were not enough. We were, not capable of bringing it to where it needed to be. And I think also in childhood programming, a lot of us experience the need to earn love. And so it's really hard for us to give up on love. And so we think that that must mean that we're not enough and we weren't able to earn that love. So we fell short. We're the ones who fell short for love. And so it's those imprints, I think, that follow us through our whole life long. And they're sort of dangling carrots in front of us. Can you see this differently? Can you get to the other side of that and see that there's something waiting for you there? Can you take on a more expansive view of what's really going on here? And those are really important questions. So, yeah, I believe that we never really lose love. And I also believe that the imprints, again, are invitations for us.
Yes.
So,
I was going to comment on I'm biting at the, what's that? Biting at the, what's that? Biting at the, chomping at the bit.
chomping at the bit, right?
To talk about being out of our alignment in relationships. And how important it is. And that's, I think that's, it's interesting because I think that's where we might put the blame on them, but it's really us we need to heal and reconcile, that we gave up so much, or we contorted ourselves so much or we made excuses around the situation so much that our spirit, who is always in our for our highest good, is the one that's first causing the angst. This is not right. This is not right. This is not right. And begging, asking us to hear it through our discomfort. And the it leaves such an imprint on us, I believe, because we have yet to reconcile with our spirit and with ourselves and say, I forgive you. I forgive what we decisions we made, that we participated in something that was very hurtful towards ourselves. And that, and when we start doing that through that forgiveness and through that acceptance, radical acceptance. So we talk about all the time, radical acceptance about what actually happened, so that we could start building our forgiving ourselves, building empathy towards them instead of anger, so we can let them go. And let them go and wish them well in such a way that, because in a loving way. Because there's nothing worse than holding on to anger for 20 years. And that anger is in our minds out towards them. And I am advocating that that anger is really needs to be reconciled with us and forgiving ourselves and giving empathy to them so we can let them go. And this is, I do believe that this might be hard for people to hear, but it's also a very empowering, transformational experience when you come to understand why you accepted the unacceptable.
Powerful.
This is where the transformation happens, as you start understanding why you are making these choices. And that is where it all starts to change, right? We talk about programming, we talk about beliefs, we talk about all these things that really get you back into your own power, get you back into responsibility, get you back into trusting yourself again. Oftentimes I talk to women who they don't want to try love again because they made such bad decisions in their last relationship that they don't trust themselves. And that is where that's a good little nugget of like, okay, this is good information for me to have. Now, how do I go deeper with it? How do I start building trust back? What actually happened? Where was I in this relationship? What was my responsibility around it? What are my beliefs about why it was okay for me to stay? And then you can start releasing those beliefs and creating new beliefs. Because spirit, mother, God, whatever it is, universe to you, right, is always there for your highest good. They want the highest good for you. And so getting in alignment with spirit will help you reach those areas that you don't maybe want to look at. So, Marcy.
Yeah. Something you were saying sort of reminded me of, the paradox of love. And the paradox is that we are taught almost the opposite of what love is. We are taught so often, as I was speaking of before, about, the need to earn love. Oh, only if you're a good girl, or only if you're this, or only if you're that, only if you can spit nickels and do cartwheels and all this stuff, and the contortion that you spoke of. And so it carries through into all of our relationships. And as it does, it forms this, we almost become encapsulated, so that we are constantly, again, looking to the outside for validation as to whether or not we're lovable, as to whether or not what we're doing for love is enough. And as a result of that encapsulation and the constant view outwards, we are isolated from the very place that is meant to teach us the truth about love. That love is an ever-flowing energy. Love is of the highest vibrational frequency. It wouldn't ever be involved in abuse. It wouldn't ever be involved in violence. It wouldn't, because it is on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of frequency. And so what we've interpreted as love and the need to be fearful of it is not love at all. It is the behavior of someone who also is disconnected from their heart, disconnected from what love is, and living literally in the twilight zone, right? There is nothing there that is speaking to love. Love, of course, is always present, always saying, pick me, pick me, let me show you the way. So we're in this paradox for so much of our lives, but the call is always to reach through that wall, those encapsulations, and to start living in the heart. And this is why Amy and I, created this program. We need to be heart-centered, because living here is subjecting ourselves to such pain and suffering because it's all ego-oriented. It has to be. The ego needs for you to stay in fear so that you don't move forward. And so the paradox is, how do you see the light for the dark, right? You're in this dark shell all the time. How do you see the light? And that is where choice comes in. There is nothing that's out of our control, but we must choose to pull that apart. We must choose to start to bring that head to the heart so that we can heal and we can come back into alignment, as you said earlier, Amy, with our higher self, our highest good, to connect our conscious mind with our higher self that is there to lead us into creating these happy and healthy and whole relationships. So, yeah, it is quite a paradox, and it's one that, sends us, running for the hills sometimes. But that's what we're doing here, isn't it? Each and every one of us is here on this program, and we'll be listening afterwards because we know there's something more. We know it. So
I want to make a quick
yeah,
because I think it's important to, I don't know, somehow we miss just how complex people are. And unfortunately, we all get these messages about, the white and shiny armor of this guy or the perfect woman over here, and we forget just how multi-layered everyone is, and that brings complexity, and to find love through complexity is a really sacred thing. It really is a beautiful sacred place to understand a person's complexity and still hold love for them. And it doesn't mean you're going to be with them. Doesn't mean you're going to marry them. Doesn't mean any of that. But it means that you can still hold love for someone who is very complex.
And that takes a lot of compassion for ourselves, So compassion for ourselves that we have made the decision to move on or to take control back of our own lives and what we want to create. But it also, is the call again and again. We keep coming back to the same place. It's the call for self-love.
Yep.
Because that letting go of the responsibility of someone else is such an act of self-love. And this is something that I think we've really started to come into our own about, right? We're starting to really understand how essential this is.
Mm-hmm.
And that so are the relationships essential for us. This is how we remember who we are. This is how we remember what love truly is, and that it is the very essence of our being. And that in that space of this high frequency of love that we're now able to access, love looks entirely different. It feels different. It sounds different. And this is where I think we also have the opportunity then to recognize, oh, I can trust myself now. I'm in a higher love. I'm in a higher vibrational frequency. I have access to a higher dimensional um, uh, information. I have more connection to all the parts of myself when I'm in this higher frequency. So my intuition is greater. My sensory projections are greater. My ability to tune in to even the slightest nuance and feel what's happening inside of me and interpret, discern that energy is greater. This is why raising our vibrational frequency, adopting this self-love journey as the most essential part of life is what is calling to each and every one of us. And it's making the difference in relationships, I think, all around the world.
Mm. So I'm going to put the link into our live Q&A. You want to speak a little bit about it real quick, Marcy? And then
yeah, please. So this is what I was referring to in the beginning of the program. We're asking your contribution of $5 to come into our Q&A, our discussion post show, and for you to be able to just share your stories, share your heart, and of course get some comfort, some support, some soothing, some coaching, some tips, some tools, because Amy and I truly want to support you, and we want to go deeper with you in conversation than what we can do just conversation between Amy and I. So this is the plan that we've come up with. We hope that you will embrace it wholeheartedly. Buy us this cup of coffee. We'll have a little coffee clutch afterwards. You'll be given a brand new link to go into a new Zoom room, and we can really get down, right? Go deep, deep down into these love stories that we have told ourselves that have prevented us now from experiencing true love for way too long. And by true love, I mean true love for ourselves and our ability to truly love another. So please, Amy's putting the link in the chat. Please join us. It's $5. And it helps us, of course, to pay our administrative fees and to continue on with this program and enjoy a cup of coffee with you.
Well, I'm still drinking my coffee. It's still a little bit early here in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link in for Ross because she purchased. So, yeah, so let's go into another question before we have our sponsor.
Oh, yeah. Talk about our sponsor.
Our sponsor link where you get $100 off of a hotel. I used it and it was awesome for a trip to San Diego. But that's our sponsor, and they're very generous in their offer of $100 off of a hotel, and that's Trinity Travels. And I'm multitasking right now. So Marcy,
Yeah.
let's go to another question.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Just to have you multitask a little bit more. What are some ways that you maintain the importance and sacred responsibility to love yourself, being on your own side? What do you do, Amy, to stay on that straight and narrow path?
Mm. Yeah. So one of the things that is important to do, and what I do, is to stay true to my passions, to my art, to my creativity. Now, I think as women, many of us are asked to give that up. That's like the first thing that we are asked to give up is our passions, the very things that we love the most. Whether it's our dance classes, our tennis lessons, our creative writing, whether it's writing that book we desire, we've been asked to put everything on hold for our husbands, our children, our parents. Everyone asks us to let go of the very things that we truly love in this world. And so when you start making those choices, when you start, if you are not happy where you are, start thinking about what was I really passionate about, and start doing that thing that you love. Like me, I've been a dancer my whole life. I've been teaching and dancing and educating, and that yesterday I took dance class. Wednesdays, I'm like taking my day off. I take my dance class. I make sure that I take my dance class and nothing gets in my way, unless I'm injured. So the first thing you can start doing is really get back to the very thing that you love. Okay. Because when you are involved in something that you love, you shine brightly. You are really being true to who you are. You are authentic in who you're being while you're doing it. And that it's something that gets you back into your heart. Okay. Many of us are exhausted by overgiving, exhausted about our jobs, exhausted about our relationships, exhausted, and just like angry or frustrated, all these emotions. And I would say get back to what you love. That would be like number one, whether it's going to the park and reading a book. Take out time for yourself. And that's hard. Listen, I talk to my friends who are mothers. I'm like, go get a massage. Oh, I can't get a massage. Why? Oh, I can't do that. Why? I'm like, why? Why not get a massage? You can afford it. Why not get it? So there's a lot of things that we must do to let go of everybody else's and what we are supposed to do for them and to do for us. So I think that's where I would start. I think we can go deeper in the live Q&A because we only have 5 minutes. So I think that's where I would say start.
I think that's a good place to start, and
Yeah.
very good recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask this. What is the number one thing that enables a person to heal and move on, Marcy? This is we're under time constraint.
We are under time constraints. Yeah. Raising your vibrational frequency. It will do it. And it'll do it in ways that you may not even realize what's happening. But if you will commit yourself, as Amy said, commit yourself, make yourself a priority to do things that feed your heart. I say also make things that feed your spirit the same priority. In other words, I know that I don't begin my day without my spiritual practice. And there are some days that it's a very quick practice, other days where it's 2 hours long. In other words, my spirit tells me exactly what I need, and I just surrender to it. I surrender to the love that I have for myself. I surrender to my higher self, because my higher self is in charge. It is constantly creating these opportunities for me to continue to expand and grow as a soul, which is, of course, my purpose in being here, so that I can create from these high frequencies of energy. We have a new world to create, and this is how we do it. So the one thing that will always work is to raise your vibrational frequency. And like I said earlier, you're going to have access to different information, different people, different opportunities, different perspectives, everything that you need to create that as a new foundation will come to you. That's the way it works. So that's what I would have to share.
Great. I'm going to put in our Trinity World Travel coupon. We got a couple of things we need to do right here. So click on this if you want to go ahead and receive $100 off your hotels. And as I said, I did it in San Diego. It was awesome. And then we are about to go into the other room for the live Q&A. If you have not signed up for that, I'm going to put that in the chat box. And then I know that some people on this call have already signed up. So I'm going to private message you the link to that Zoom room. And if we missed you, it should be in your inbox, the link. And
I also see that we have a question in the chat. So how does one reconcile for forgiveness to happen? Are there steps? Yes.
Yes.
And we will share them in the chat. Please come in. It was such a great question. But forgiveness is not something that we can just jump into. It really needs to be understood and seen as the energetic process that it is. And yes, I have already put that on my list. We're going to be talking about that in the chat. Please come in and join us. We would love to hear your perspective and yeah, what your thoughts are, what your experiences are, and of course, how can we help you? You know, forgiveness is something that Amy and I have had to deal with too. And constantly, as human beings, we are in constant process with forgiveness, with the process of letting go. And, you know, letting go of whatever prevents us from loving ourselves completely.
Yes, and I would say I would say that letting go and detachment has been such a blessing. When you learn about that, it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing to have that. So we are, if nothing else, we're on time here.
Yes, for the first time ever. Red letter day.
Yeah. So we are going to jump into the other Zoom room, and you should have the link in either in your inbox or in the private message. And if you link it, I put it in, Marcy, I put it in your private chat already. So if you haven't purchased the live Q&A, we're about to go in there right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I put it in there. Right
Got it.
And we will see you in the other room. Here we go. All right. Hi, Sabine. We're jumping
Have a
off
wonderful day. We love you, everyone.
Yeah,
we're going into the other room, and we are asking again, just take a look. The link is in the chat if you want to join us. And we look forward to having you in there with us, where we can really do some deep dive work and be there as a support for you, because we know that this is a very challenging subject. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, here we go.